Mary's Eclectic Interests. Today we'll be making a traditional pumpkin pie with a special topping. Usually it's a walnut topping, but you can also use almonds or pecans. And I'll be using the walnuts because that's what I happen to have in my house. The first thing we're going to do is make a pie crust. Now I'm going to cheat there. I have used, this is a pre-made pie crust. It's called Pappy's. There are other brands out there you can use. But this is the one I'm going to use just because I'm not a very good pie crust maker. I have my pastry cloth, which I put some flour on. And I also have a little turtleneck type. I call it a little turtleneck to go over my rolling pin. And this also I coat with flour. And it seems to work quite well. At least better than the other things that I've used. And here we go. I'm going to start rolling this out. I'm one of those people that happens to like a very thin pie crust. Now whether this is, now as you notice my little tapestry thing or my pastry cloth is moving. Now I took this out last night, so I'm not quite sure, and I'm not even sure how old this pastry crust is. I've had it in the freezer for quite a while. And as you can see, mine isn't exactly going round. And I'm lucky if I can get enough of it to go into my pie. Now if I was making this pie to go to someone else's home, I wouldn't be putting it in a traditional pie plate. I would go and purchase one of those aluminum ones that you can leave, and then you don't have to worry about talking to the host or hostess about, oh yes, I brought over some pie. You can have the pie, but I would like to have my pie plate back right away. And the reason I do that, now this is really moving. I usually have this on top of, here, let's do this. Maybe it won't move as much here, because I'm sure not. There we go. I don't know if that's going to work or not. Yes, that's working much better. So I'll usually ask the host or hostess for my pie plate back, mainly because I have run into the problem of leaving it thinking I will get it back at a later date, and of course you never do. So I always bring anything over to a person's house and something that I can leave, and I don't care if I leave it. Now this is going more square, and I might have to start all over with it. I'm hoping not. I'm looking at my pie plate, and you'll notice I want this really, really thin because I don't care that much for pie crust. For me, it's all in the filling. That's all I care about. Okay, I'm going to see if this is going to work. Now here's my pie plate. I am going to put some flour on, but I'm not going to put it in the pie plate. And that's because all it's going to do, as you can see, is kind of slide around. What I'll do instead is I'll put the flour on the back of this pastry. That's a little bit too much because I'm just pulling it out of a bag over here. And then that won't stick. I can always brush this over. Now this tapestry canvas and all of these things, they can be washed, so I don't worry about them. Okay. As I said, I like it thin, and it's thin. I can actually see there is a design in the middle of this plate. This pie crust is so thin I can see the design. That's the type of pie crust I like. Other people like a really thick pie crust. That just isn't me. Everybody is different. It's the same thing as when you make toast. Some consider toast when it's barely toasted, and others like it as dark as they can get just before it burns. So, and this is, and when I'm trying to do it, I'm not the neatest little thing where where you crunch this up and it makes a really nice little pie crust. I know there are ways of doing that, but for some reason, there, Betty Crocker, I'm not. And it certainly isn't any other. There. So I actually think I have one of those things, a little pastry thing that goes around and does that someplace in the house. I like to pick up all these little cooking tools. I see things and I go, oh, that's interesting. Will I ever use it? You know, it's not that expensive. I'll pick it up just because it's kind of interesting and fun, and maybe someday I'll use it. A lot of times I buy things, I use them for totally different reasons that I purchased them for. And the pie crust doesn't have to be all that great looking. I know there's others, you want it just perfect, and for me, I just want to get a pie crust. There it is. As the saying goes, that is good enough. And here's my other one. So it's in here, it's nice and smooth. And now I'm going to get rid of this leftover pie crust. I can use it to roll it out for something else later on if I want to. But otherwise, I'm just going to put it in, I have a little bowl here, I'm just going to put it in this little bowl and set it aside along with this. Now this, so I'm not going to get flour all over the place, I'm going to try and, there we go. I'm just going to fold everything up, and then I'll bring it back to the trash can here and dump it out. There we go. And I'll wash this later on. And of course, here's my little, I'll take this off. My little, and there we go. For the traditional pumpkin pie filling, you will need a can of pumpkin. This one is a 15-ounce can. It says 16-ounce, but we're going with the 15-ounce. I think at one point they were 16-ounce cans, they just sort of took an ounce away. A 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, not evaporated milk. Do not use evaporated milk, it will not turn out. We have 2 eggs. And for the spices, you have 1.5 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I happen to like cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. So let's get our nice little bowl over here. I'm going to have to do, and basically you just throw everything together. That's what it, you know, in a large bowl, combine all the ingredients. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have to get myself a can opener. Here we go. Now I'm one of these people that likes pumpkin, but I have found a few times I didn't have any pumpkin in the house, but I had sweet potatoes in a can. They call it sweet potato pie. I've made both with the exact same spices, and I don't really taste much of a difference. Now don't forget, I have a couple of eggs that are going to go in here too. I think I'm going to whip those up a little bit. I have this nice little, I don't think you have to, but I have a tendency to do that. And I'm just going to whisk these. This is a larger whisk because this is the whisk I had planned on just using for the pie. Good enough. And let's just kind of get this together a little bit. Now if I do this wrong, I'm lucky enough to have enough pumpkin and enough condensed milk and all of the other things to do another pie. Now I've already preheated my oven to 425 degrees, but that's only a temporary temperature. It will be brought down to a lower temperature there after 15 minutes. Okay, here we go. I wonder if I can get this to go up where you can kind of see it a little bit. It does look pretty, doesn't it? Always like how they swirl around. And this is so easy to make. Pumpkin pie just takes minutes to make, especially if you cheat and you're not making your own pie crust. Oh, let's get this out of here. And you don't do a whole lot of mixing with pumpkin pie. Let's see if I can get this in without spilling it. And now I need my scraper that I just put away over here. Now watch, I'll drop this whole thing right on top of it. There. Oh, I'm trying not to. It's starting to slip though. All right, hold on. I grabbed it. Okay. One pie now comes for part 3. First, I'm going to be putting this in the oven, as I said, at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, I will bring this down to 350 degrees. I want you to see, this is my ugly, ugly pizza pan that I use for just about anything but pizza. And what I'm going to do is put my pie on top. That way, if something happens and your pie boils over, let's say you make an apple pie or anything, but it boils over, you're not going to get it in your oven, because the last thing you want to do is try and scrape this stuff out of the bottom of your oven. Okay. There we go. So what I'm going to be doing in here is putting all the ingredients for the topping. In the front, there is 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cold butter, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. In the back, there is 1/4 cup of firmly packed brown sugar, and there is 3/4 cups of walnuts, or you could use almond, or you could use pecans. And this is for the topping. So in 15 minutes I'm going to take that out, and then I'll put the topping on it. We used to have a lot of family members get together, so I would make several pies and vegetables and all kinds of stuff. So all of this is going to go in here. So it says, first in a blender put your sugar, the brown sugar, and the flour. Okay, in the blender put in the sugar and the flour, cinnamon and butter. Cinnamon and butter. I think I'm going to cut this butter up a little bit. So instead of taking a blender out, I'm going to do this in this little food processor. Of course, I have butter all over me. Get all of these things out of here, and we're just going to, let's see if it goes this way. It does. hear you. I'm going to unplug this first. And I'm going to take this off and get rid of this. And then I'm going to take a small bowl. And all of this is going in here, and all of this is going in here. And you put it, and you have to blend it. You can see quite a bit of the flour is showing. I have to get that all together, put on top of the pie. Now I'm just using a spoon. Normally I would use a fork, but there's some pretty big chunks in there that did not get broken up as far as when the brown sugar and everything combined. Yeah, you can see the butter is still there. Well, I went and got a fork. This will work much better. And you want it blended all together where it's a little bit on the crumbly side. And what I'll be making, hopefully after this, is pumpkin bread. Because it didn't take that long to mix this together. I figure this will be a 15-minute show. So I'm hoping to make this. Getting there. Here's what it's going to look like if I can bring it forward, or if I could get it, this little thing to my other little there. So we'll see how it looks. It's still, whoops, I'm kind of being messy, aren't I? Now when I did this for the family, I would always make one pie without any nuts on it. That would be for the little kids. A lot of little kids don't like nuts, so I would make one for them, or for the grown-ups that didn't like them, and then I would make one for the adults, and I always knew who liked what, so there wasn't an issue. If there was a overwhelming desire for everybody to just have plain, then I would bring plain. Okay, that looks good. All right, I'm back, and as you can see, here's my pie. It is not cooked, 15 minutes in. So now I'm going to take the topping and put this on top of here. Okay, I'm thinking I might get something that'll spread this on a little better than my hands, but and there is quite a bit of this topping, so there is a lot of it, and I'm just going to keep pouring it on. I just don't want it to sink way down. I'm trying to keep it on the top, and there we go. It's starting to look really nice. Now, I'm kind of messy about this, but here we go. I didn't realize I was a little off center here, so let's see if I can get myself back on center. Let's clean this mess off a little bit. So this is what I'm going to do. I don't want this crust looks just about right. It's a nice golden brown. And if I leave it in the oven, it's going to literally burn. So I'm going to, and I know I have some aluminum foil there, something that I had purchased years ago to go around, but this seems to work really well. And I just bring this around like this. The crust will still get brown, you know, a little more brown, but not as bad as it would be if I left the covering off. And again, this is very simple. All it is aluminum foil. In case you're wondering what that funny noise was back there, that was my refrigerator going off, so I'm sure that'll be in the show. That's what happens when you do things at home. But I'm lucky I can do this at home. It certainly has been making the days go so much faster than my friend who has absolutely no hobbies at all, and she hates to cook. She's not a cooker, and that's fine. There's a lot of people that don't like to cook. And there. I don't care for cooking, but I like to bake. But I'll do both. Okay, I'm hoping that this will stay on. My oven is now at 350 degrees. Wish me luck here. Whoops. There we go. Whoa. I'm going to be baking this pie for about 35 to 40 minutes. Or until you put a knife in the middle and it comes out clean. The amount of time that it takes to do a pie depends upon how deep the pie is. This is in a shallower pie tin, so it might take less time. All right, and then we'll be back later and I'll show you what the pie looks like cooked. Here is the pumpkin pie with the walnut topping. It is now out of the oven. And as you'll notice, I had that crust so thin that it kind of crumbled a little bit when it came out. But all in all, this turned out quite well. But let's do the taste test, okay? I was looking for my pie here wedge thing that I could just pull this out a little easier. Being that this is still warm, I'm not sure. Yeah, look at how it's breaking. Ooh, nice tender. And with that aluminum foil around, that crust did not get that much darker, did it? It turned out very nice. Now let's see if I can get underneath here. As I said, there's very little crust. So what I need is something. There. All right, I found something. Let's see if this will work, because this is going to be my dinner, or for some people, you say supper. And let's see if I can get it out of here. As they say, the first slice is always the hardest one to get out, whether it's cake or pie. Not bad. A little bit of pie crust there. Now I'm going to turn this around so that you can see where the pie came out. And this is the pie that I'm going to be eating. So here's my pie. It's very, very warm. And I'm going to just take a little bit off the edge. But with that topping, it's rather difficult to get this on top of a fork. There we go. Yeah, that was very good. I'm going to take this off. As I said, I have not made this pie in years. I forgot how good it is. Now, if I were also serving this to the family, another thing that was great to do is put whipped cream on top. And I would make it from heavy whipping cream from scratch, but most of us, if time is at an essence, go and get the ever-ready whipping cream that is in the freezer section. And I don't want to give you a brand name because we can't do this on these particular shows. We can't, oh, what the heck. You know what I'm talking about, Cool Whip.